Before we even get started in this video, I want to go over some information for V6 owners, because the rest of this video is going to be completely 4-cylinder i4 2.0 liter related. Let me just get the V6 stuff out of the way, and then we'll continue on with the actual smoke testing. This is actually ND28's KLG4. This is from a 98 to 2002 V6. Basically, I use this manifold as a little teaching tool. So as you can see, there are a lot of tiny little ports all over. And what I would recommend for all V6 owners, 1993 to 2002, KLDE or KLG4, I highly recommend that you go check out this video that I'm going to post a link to from Real Fixes Real Fast about smoke testing. And V6 owners have a lot in common with that specific video that the 4-cylinder owners like myself do not have in common. Particularly this little VRIS actuator that is built into the manifold. This goes for all KLDE or KLG4 owners. My car, the 1993 to 1997 Mazda 626, does not have something like that that's built into the manifold. Why is that important? Well, if you go check out that Real Fixes Real Fast video, you'll notice that since it's built into the manifold, this can be a source of vacuum leaks. And you should be concerned about this. If you do a vacuum leak test, you have to pay very close attention to your VRIS shutter actuators and make sure that no smoke is coming out in those locations. I believe there's two of them. One should be there, and then the other I think is, so I believe it's something like that. Yeah. So I think the other one might be on the top. And those two actuators there can be a source of vacuum leaks, along with all of your little hose connections, the throttle body gasket, and you name it, and the same thing that I'm going to cover on the 4-cylinder owners. Just an FYI, I highly recommend that all 1998 to 2002 Mazda 626 owners, i4 or V6, and 1993 to 1997 V6 owners only, not the i4 owners, go check out that video from Real Fixes Real Fast. You will learn a lot about vacuum testing, including things like this that can be possible culprits. Let's start with the i4 information. Yay! The 1993 to 1997 Mazda 626 2.0 did not have the same VTCS system that the 1998 to 2002 had. Basically, if you have a 1998 to 2002, there's like one additional place that you have to check for smoke coming out of, which is your variable tumble control system actuator, which is exactly what I showed you on the V6 manifold over there. It's basically going to look exactly the same thing. It's just a little shutter valve built into the manifold. Okay, so continuing on. Today I'm going to show you how to vacuum test your intake system using a cigar. The same method that was popularized by Scotty Kilmer. And here's Scotty Kilmer, how to test for vacuum leaks using a cigar. Excellent, excellent video. Probably one of the best videos Scotty Kilmer has ever done. This is the first time I've ever attempted it. And just like a lot of the things that I do for the first time, you get to see me do for the first time. So this is going to be a learning experience for both of us. I'm pretty excited. I have no idea if I actually have leaks or not. It just seems that smoke testing your intake is a very hot topic this week for the DIYer slash technician slash mechanic community out there on YouTube. Real Fixes Real Fast did a video, Scanner Danner did a video, Eric the Car Guy did a video on it. Not that I'm trying to rehash any of their posts, it's just when you see a lot of guys doing that kind of thing, it just kind of makes you want, maybe I think I'll do a smoke test just to see if I do have any vacuum leaks. I've picked up a lot of tips that I think are going to be invaluable for the Mazda 626 community, including the V6 owners. V6 owners, you're going to get some good information, some good tidbits, I guarantee you, out of this video. So the first thing that you have to decide is where you're going to put your smoke. My previous video, I said that I was going to do the filter box. You can take the filter box, stuff it with a rag, put a hose in there, and then smoke test through the hose. I think that's okay. You can do that. If you smoke test there, it will go through the throttle body. Yes, the throttle valve is closed. However, there are still bypass chambers that will go kind of up and over and into the intake. That's how your car doesn't starve for oxygen even when the throttle is fully closed. There is bypass air getting in through to the intake. First, you can do the filter box. 2, you can do the brake booster line. 3, you can do an intake manifold direct vacuum line, which is the one that I'm going to start out with. And if that one doesn't go over so hot, or if I pass out, then I'll switch to the other two. On the back of the FS manifold, there is a direct port into the intake manifold. So you can plug in, and I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's a little T valve right there. It's got a black cap on it that you can put your vacuum gauge directly on. I don't know if it comes with all versions of the 626 MX6 probe like that. It's like that on mine, and I have seen it on other 626s, so I know that is a stock feature, but I don't know if it is stock to all models. And as you can see, my cap here is cracked. So that might be an actual possible location for a vacuum leak. Check that cap. Make sure it's not cracked, because this is direct into the intake manifold right here. So if this cap is cracked and it's leaking air directly through the cap, you're going to get an air leak through the cap. So that's one thing to check for. Make sure there's no air leaks. And this is common. This is actually a replacement. This is a brand new cap. I only put this cap on here like less than a year ago. So this cap is broken already as a replacement, and now I have to find another replacement. To the point where I'm thinking about just somehow cap it or get a plug in there and plug that line as well as cap it, because that's a possible source for vacuum leaks right there. I'll just set that aside. Now, in order to put a line on here, what you can do is go to the store and get some vacuum line. Standardized vacuum line size. Or if you've ever bled your brakes, then you might be familiar with the clear aquarium tubing. And if you ream out the edge here just to make it enlarge just a little bit, you can fit that right on there. Okay, so this is going to be my setup. Aquarium vacuum tube. That way you can actually see the smoke going in as well. Now I do have a fan on, but it's not going to be blowing directly on the engine. You probably want to do this in a non-windy indoor environment so that you can see smoke coming directly up. That way you don't have to worry about it wafting away, and you get a much better location identification. Alright, now I want you to focus on the beam of light. Okay, you can see that beam, right? So far, one obvious drawback of doing it this way is I just can't see anything. And because I'm smoking a thick cigar outside here, all the cigar smoke that I'm smoking outside here is blowing all over the place here. So it's hard to differentiate where a leak might be or what's coming from my cigar. I'll put as much into that hose into the light as I can show. Well, if there's any leaks in here, I'm not seeing them. Nothing obvious, and I have no idea where the smoke is actually going. It's not going out my exhaust. It's not going inside the cabin because of a leaky brake booster hose. I have no idea where it's going. It should be going directly into the manifold. One puff after one puff after one puff, and just keep adding pressure into because it's losing pressure or through the filter box or the hood scoop. It's going out the intake. So if I keep having really thick smoke and putting it into the tube, eventually it becomes harder and harder to blow through there. It's not coming out of the oil cap. Next thing I'm going to do is unhook this PCV valve. And I'm just going to set that off to the side. Hopefully, because this is going into the intake manifold, it should come out here. If everything is going right, it should come out there. This is just to make sure that my test is actually working, that I'm hooked into the right place. With this PCV line disconnected, I should definitely have smoke coming out of here when I blow in through here, because this is attached to the intake manifold, and the intake manifold goes directly in here. The problem is the smoke. It's just going way too fast. Because this diameter hose is so small, when I blow into it, it's like a little jet stream. The restricted small diameter tube is just making the smoke go way too fast. So when I blow in, take a look at here and you'll see it come out like a vent of steam, and you'll barely be able to see it. That's what the problem is. I don't know if you could see that or not, but I just did that, and it was blowing out of there like frickin' Mount St. Helens. I couldn't actually see the smoke until it was about a foot above there, because it was just coming out way too fast. and is too thin. It's not a thick enough smoke. I don't think a cigar is going to create enough thick smoke unless it's containerized somehow in order for you to see it. It's just, I don't think a cigar test is going to be a good enough test. Not with that small diameter hose. That took me the entire cigar to try and figure out why I couldn't see anything. And I think the simple fact is you should not use these small manifold ports. I don't really think that's going to do it. You're going to need a large one, either a brake booster or use a large diameter hose inside the filter box. You cannot use a small vacuum tube for a cigar test. There's just not enough smoke. Get another cigar and revisit this and use the brake booster and the filter box, because I'm out of cigar, and then we'll see how that goes. So I'll pick this up tomorrow when I get another cigar. Yeah. I have a headache. Well, that test was fairly inconclusive, so today we're going to come back. Let's take off the brake booster line, which I can't do because I don't have the correct diameter hose for the brake booster line. That looks like it's going to be maybe a 5/8. Definitely not 3/4. That's smaller. Maybe it might be 1/2 inch. The brake booster line that goes down here, that one right there. I think that's about 1/2 inch. So what you would do in that case is take off the line here, attach a long length of 1/2 inch hose. I'm guessing 1/2 inch. That way I can blow into the brake booster. That way you can vacuum test the brake booster itself, and then you'll also have the large diameter line that you can blow into the intake manifold, which is where the other side of that brake booster hose connects up to the bottom of the intake manifold. Since I don't have that length of hose right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the filter box and try and blow through the filter box. So I'll set that up. Well, I just realized that the filter box is actually attached to the MAF. You got 4 bolts. So in order to take the filter box top off, you have to take the MAF off with it. The MAF and the filter box all come off as one assembly. Just loosen the 1 screw clamp around the 90-degree intake elbow, and I'll remove all that. And the filter is still very clean, so I've got a good filter in there. I can tell that most of the cigar smoke when I was blowing from over there in this direction probably ended up in the filter box and was not getting past the filter. I didn't even think about that. I'm an idiot. I know for sure that cigar smoke was getting in here because it stinks. 1-day-old cigar smoke is just sitting in here. Stinks so bad. Get a hose, plug that up with a rag, try and get it to be airtight, and then blow through that way. Now I have this long black hose going directly into the manifold, and that should allow me to blow slower, allowing me to fill the system up with smoke a little bit easier. Small diameter tube, you have to blow too hard, and I basically almost passed out trying to blow through that tiny little vacuum tube. So I don't know if that's going to be airtight. Now the trick here that I'm trying to do is just to blow slowly. I don't want to blow really hard and fill it up really quick, just a little at a time. I'm leaking out around my towel. But at least I know the smoke's getting that far. Actually working fairly decent there. Okay. So I think the larger diameter hose is honestly the trick. To be able to blow through a large diameter hose slowly, so that you can build up your smoke content. Using a small diameter hose like this yellow vacuum line, it's just too small. I think that's the trick. Now the bigger trick is, how do I seal this around the hose? Because a towel is not getting it done really. The problem here is that it's leaking out from right around here, but that's the only place I see any leaks in the entire system. So it's trying to backfeed through here. And because of the larger diameter hose, you can see that much better. And since that is the only place that I see smoke, absolutely positive that I have no air leaks anywhere. I'm good to go. No air leaks coming out around the throttle body gasket, intake manifold gasket, injectors, vacuum lines, solenoids, you name it. So that's about as good as a test as you can possibly want. So if it backfeeds right from wherever you're blowing into, that's about as good of a test as you could possibly want. The throttle, it's still going to go past the throttle body, but just for argument's sake, we'll go ahead and we'll open the throttle body, and I'll put some plier lock clamps on it and keep the throttle body open. And the way that you would keep the throttle body open is to rotate the throttle until this back tab comes up and hits this tab. So there will be two tabs, and you want both of those tabs to touch, and then you lock it down. Like that. And now with our throttle body open, I'm gonna blow through the hose again, see if that makes a difference. I'm starting to get some blowback through the intake already, and that's after 3 blows. Alright. I could not find any leaks anywhere, except for what was coming back out of the intake. For me, this test was kind of inconclusive because I didn't have a helper that was shining around with a flashlight looking for that smoke while I blew through here, because you need that positive pressure in order to force that smoke out. As soon as I stop blowing, the smoke's not going to come out anywhere. And I have to get my flashlight and hurry up and see if I can find any traces of smoke. You need 2 people for this job, unless you have a vacuum pump, which will force the smoke through. I think this is a valid test. There is enough smoke here, and you can blow and put enough pressure here to cause that smoke to come out in different areas. But you need 2 people, 1 to blow, 1 to look. So I hope this test has been helpful for someone. This is the first time I've ever performed a cigar smoke test. It was really neat. It's really stinky. And don't just leave the smoke sitting in here. Make sure you then blow through and blow fresh air in there. That way the first time you go to crank it up, it's not trying to burn that smoke and mess up your O2 sensor. It's just going to fire right up. So I hope that you've learned something along with me. Number 1, obviously, use a bigger diameter hose. Number 2, don't use the smaller diameter hose on the back of the manifold. Use either a large hose inside the intake with the throttle body open. I think that was the best method. Or try and use the brake booster, which I did not do because I don't have the right size line for the brake booster. This is 3/4, way too big for the brake booster line. In summary, I think cigar test is a valid test if you do it right. So if someone on the forum says, yeah, I smoke tested my intake, take that with a grain of salt, because there is a technique to it. You could get, a false sense of security if you smoke test it incorrectly. And then obviously after this, you could also opt for a water test on your injectors. You can spray for water and look for bubbles, soapy water, look for bubbles. Or you could use carb cleaner. I don't like the idea of carb cleaner. Leave carb cleaner as an air leak or vacuum leak method to the professionals. I don't recommend that for the DIYer, and unless you're using propane. If you're going to use propane, I think that would probably be a better way to go than just using carb cleaner. Carb cleaner has a lower flash point, which means it could burn off in a big fireball much easier than propane. Propane has a higher flash point, which is why it's a little bit safer gas to use to look for intake leaks, but your engine has to be running for that. If your engine runs like crap anyway, you'll probably want to start here with a smoke test. You can rent smoke machines from some places, which I would recommend you do if you have the money for that. If you're on a budget, I think a cigar test, take your cigar test results with a grain of salt. It's not gonna be 100% every time. You might get some inconclusive, and if you get inconclusive results, then I think that's probably better than obvious air leaks. Because for the amount of smoke that I was blowing in here, if I had a massive obvious air leak, it would have definitely shown up. But then again, the really tiny, small fracture air leaks can present the biggest headache to try and track down. At this point, I don't think I have an air leak. I did this just as a test to show you guys how to do it. And if you suspect an air leak, this is a very low-cost method that I can recommend to the Mazda 626 community. So next time there is an air leak question, you're going to be watching this video, because I'm tired of answering vacuum leak questions over and over and over and over. Here's a video. Enjoy, learn, diagnose, test, gather evidence. I'm done. Cool.